Welcome to the Healthcast, where we explore the intersection of healthcare, technology, and business innovation. I'm Phil Zappone, family nurse practitioner and founder of NXAI Growth Consultancy. We help healthcare companies grow with AI and automation. On this show, I speak with founders, clinicians, and innovators who are building the future of healthcare. Welcome to another episode of the Healthcast. I'm super excited to sit down with Dr. Loren Isakson, CEO and founder of North Star Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. Dr. Isakson is bringing advanced patient care and improving patient outcomes to those he sees. Welcome to the show, Dr. Isakson.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. We're both smiling right now. We've had some trip ups, but so glad to sit down with you and get things rolling. Let's dive right into it.
Sure.
All right. You started with a strong science and research background before moving into clinical medicine. Can you expand on that a little bit and tell us how you transitioned into patient care?
Yeah, definitely. So I originally had this idea that I was going to be an academic, and I thought that would be in medicine. I have some family that was in medicine. So I started the traditional kind of pre-med route. I was in physiology and headed on with all the typical classes and so forth. But in my fourth year, I took a course called Artificial Internal Organs. And I became really fascinated about the idea of research and the process involved with research, rather than, let's say, like the final result. I started thinking to myself, well, maybe I don't want to become a doctor, at least not in the typical sense right away. So I decided I was going to pursue a master's degree. Fortunately, they were able to take my MCAT scores, and I had all that information in my head to take that test. And that test was good for a few years. So I used that to get into my master's program. And during that time, I had a chance to kind of experiment a little bit, both in science and learn about other careers. But I definitely missed that sort of person-to-person connection that came with medicine and the folks that I talked to. So I decided to apply to med school. And I also found out that you could do research just as a MD, quote, just as an MD. But you could definitely do quite a bit with it rather than a typical PhD. And I decided to apply to med school. And I've kept an open mind since. And I've tried to keep one foot a little bit in the research world, be it bench research or perhaps some clinical research in the future. And I would say it was that full of multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah. I having sat down with numerous docs, I don't know if I've spoke with anyone who's had as broad of a training background as yourself. So it's impressive to hear what the path that you've taken.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And point me in the right direction here, because we spoke previously about the background with immunology, and I think asthma specialists also require some training with pediatrics. But one of my questions was, you've trained across pediatrics, immunology, and research. How did that multidisciplinary approach affect your patient care today?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yes, you're right. I mean, in order to become an allergy immunology physician, you first have to do a residency in either pediatrics or internal medicine or med peds. I chose pediatrics. It suits my personality better. I like playing video games with my patients, and I guess my kids say I'm a big child at heart. So
that's a compliment.
That worked pretty well for me.
Yeah.
But I would say that, I really enjoy the idea of seeing a complex immune deficient patient. But you still have to think about the basics as well, in terms of how many wet diapers they have if they're a kid, or is there an ear infection? But an ear infection might just be a regular infection, but it might be something a little bit more sinister. And it might be the beginning of an immune deficiency. So I really like that breadth and that scope. And then using my science background was very helpful. In my undergrad, I took a class in cell signaling, which I really enjoyed. And that plays a huge role, especially as it relates to immune deficiencies, because sometimes there's mutations that happen in the cell signaling cascade that lead to these deficiencies. So you really have to have a sort of like all-encompassing scope from what I say, the microscopic to the macroscopic, and it keeps my day cognitively interesting.
Tell us a little bit about your experience at MacDill Air Force Base and how that applies to you as a business owner, like some lessons you learned as a business owner today.
Sure, definitely. Well, so my time at MacDill Air Force Base was interesting because I don't actually have any military heritage, and I was not in the military, but I did work with them to help start that clinic from the ground up. So I think the first thing that I learned there is I really have to stretch myself and learn to adapt to a different type of culture, a different way of thinking. And it's not to say it's a bad way of thinking. It's just that it's not sort of the standard type of thing that you're exposed to in a civilian medical environment. Yeah. But that being said, it is a big organization, and there are some parallels to other large organizations. And you kind of have to get used to a little bit in terms of implementing new processes when there's a hierarchy. Sometimes things that are very clinically evident don't translate well to the business side of things. So I found often that there were things that our clinic needed to do to advance, but we would have to sort of make a case on an economic scale in terms of why we should implement it. And again, it's not just particular to McDill, it's any large organization. I would say I would have to turn medicine into dollars saved or dollars earned in order to understand things at scale. Now, in my own clinic, I only have to have that discussion inside my head because I'm the owner. And if I want something, I pick up the phone and I make that call and I understand the business impact of it. I just don't have to go through all the spreadsheets to figure it all out and make those calculations because it's instant for me. So there are some differences there for sure.
Tell us a little bit about your purpose or your personal mission and how that overlaps with your patient care.
Sure. Well, really, my personal mission is to bring academic quality care to the community. There is a bit of a difference there in terms of what a lot of folks can do, and myself included, outside of a tertiary care system, but there's quite a bit that I can do. And I think the other thing is speed to care. There's a lot of specialists who there's a very long wait time around here. Sometimes it's, if you're lucky, it's a few weeks, but oftentimes people tell me it's 3 to 5 or even 6 months to get in. We have a immediate availability, and we've done that through sort of being nimble and using technology. And we are in a growth phase, so I suppose there's some of that as well. I really want to express the fact that in allergy immunology, you could either do pediatrics or adult before your training, or you could do allergy or immunology. So some people tend to gravitate towards one quadrant or the other. But because of my pediatric training, I'm very comfortable in all 4 quadrants. So we see somebody from birth all the way to the end of the road, and we try to bring that level of training that we got in a tertiary care center quickly to the community.
That's amazing service you provide. I hope our listeners appreciate how amazing it is, the expediency you emphasize on getting patients in, getting them the care they need. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. We might have to talk more about that later and how we can replicate that in other places.
I'm open to discussion.
All right. How is technology impacting your business? Like, where is it most impactful for your business and for the patient, for the care that the patients receive? Are there things going on behind scenes that are really elevating the care?
Absolutely. I would say that in thinking about patient care, I'm very hesitant to use the word customer, but I do think of the process in terms of the customer. And certainly a lot of our patients want something of a, Amazon kind of experience and so forth. So you have to think about the patient journey, really. How do they find you in the world? And then how do they schedule with you? And then the whole insurance stuff, how do you navigate that? Once that's all done, how do we get you in to visit, be it telehealth or in person? And then how do we document? And then how do we do patient education? And then follow up and sort of keep that loop open. And there are, multiple ways that you can invest in technology to help with that. Of course, the selfish part of me as a doctor would say, okay, we want to invest heavy in documentation tools. And we certainly have. We've finally managed to incorporate an ambient AI scribe that's really making things go quicker. But there's other things that physicians, if you're listening out there, folks, I've managed to partner with a company that helps me with prior authorizations on even complicated medicines such as advanced biologics. And it's pretty much as simple as just writing a regular prescription, and then they handle all the back and forth, so I'm not on the telephone anymore, which allows me to focus more on my patients. We're looking into things like patient education videos, and we're working with some AI systems, or maybe just like a regular Loom video, so I can go over EpiPen training. It's really hard to remember a lot at a single visit. Of course, there's marketing tools, but one of the biggest ones I'm looking forward to, actually, I'm hopeful we're going to see, is tools that allow for summaries of massive amounts of data, either external data from other PDFs or internally in our chart. I wouldn't say guilty is the right word, but my review of systems is something of a summary / HPI, and it takes me a really long time, especially my immune deficient patients, but I think we're going to speed that up a lot this year. So I think those are some of the big ones that come to mind.
Kind of reflective of your education, that just to be a continual student and being a very progressive clinic and continually to push things forward.
I definitely do. One thing I think I do see things a little bit differently, not just as a typical practice owner, but I did do a Master's of Science in Entrepreneurship at the University of South Florida in the Muma College of Business. And all that's to say is not about padding my CV. It's just that we were exposed to a different way of thinking and design thinking and the human-centered interaction. I had a great experience there, made great connections, and I'm able to incorporate those kind of manners of thinking into my personal practice.
Yeah, I get that. The older I get, I just feel like I value learning more than when I was younger, and I feel like thirsty for it, and that's one of the motivators for my show. So to learn
Definitely.
from the guests and people doing amazing work like yourself.
Thanks.
I'm going to put this in the positive. What are some of the biggest inefficiencies or friction points in traditional allergy immunology care that maybe you've addressed, or what are some things that you're proud of that now you've streamlined?
Sure. Well, outside of the whole, insurance fighting back and forth kind of stuff, those are, I think, common at every practice in every area. I would say from like a therapeutic aspect, we've looked at different types of therapies. So we've offering your traditional allergy shots and allergy drops. That is a slow and steady process by design. I wouldn't say it's inefficient. It's just lengthy because we have to retrain the immune system. But one area we're looking into, we have not yet fully committed to, is there is something called intralymphatic immunotherapy, where essentially they take a much smaller concentration of the allergens and inject it into a lymph node under ultrasound guidance. And really the idea here, as it's been presented to me, is that it's a total of 3 shots, each spaced roughly about a month apart. That's supposed to roughly equate to something like 3 to 5 years of immunotherapy. So you're done in 8 weeks. So now I'm still interested in reviewing some of the studies to understand the staying power of that, but I mean that can drastically cut down what you're trying to do. And if the safety profile is as good as it's made out to be, it's something we may be looking into in the future.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a business owner in your field?
Yeah, hands down, the biggest challenge is finding and working with the right people. There's always challenges in business, but it doesn't have to be technology. All of that stuff is you can get around if you have a dedicated and core team, and that's both internal and external. But once you do, you feel that sense of lift that you've really been looking for. And I think you can kind of get through just about anything with the right people.
What are some of the current bottlenecks that you're navigating, either as a business or in a larger scale, not personally, but as a business itself or in a larger scale?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's definitely personal. I would say that Dr. Isakson is the largest bottleneck in his clinic by far. I have 2 things I'm holding in different hands in opposition. One is my relentless desire to go deep on immune deficiencies, and the other is the practicalities of not being able to do that in a private practice and staying financially solvent, I guess would be a good word if I had to use it. So I have to recognize, what I can do in a given visit. How far can we push technology to get us what we want to practice at a level that I don't feel like I'm compromising? And beyond that, I would say the same thing applies to a number of other duties. I'm really trying to set more boundaries for myself because I enjoy getting my sleeves up and getting into the business and marketing and understanding AI and optimization. But for us in our current growth period, I'm going to have to learn to let the reins go a little bit. I would pat myself on the back for just that awareness. Now I have to execute on that a little bit.
The growth scale look like for you guys? What are some of your aspirations? What are some things that you guys are have in the works?
Sure. Well, we've recently onboarded a few new procedures that we're happy to bring about. So one is penicillin skin testing and amoxicillin oral challenges to help with the drug delabeling. I think it's something like 10% of the people report that they have a penicillin allergy, and maybe only 1% actually really do have a penicillin allergy.
Yeah.
So things like that. But one of the things we're looking into is clinical trials, which I've helped with on a smaller level during fellowship, but we're going to see if that's a possibility for us in the future. It's a big lift for a small clinic, but I think if we partner with the right people, we can get that done.
Does that mean new procedures? Does that mean like new equipment's available to you, or new partnerships with businesses to collaborate, or new training?
I think any and all of that is an option for us. When I first started this, I thought I would be a very quiet clinic and I would stay solo forever. Yeah. And I didn't really have any aspirations to grow the biggest allergy clinic on the Eastern Seaboard. But I definitely feel as I get older and I get more white hair on my face that I see a role for me to step back a little bit more into strategy and operations. That time's not there just yet, but I think, yes, partnerships with other businesses, again, clinical trials, and maybe using our clinic as a way to help bring technology through evidence-based science and trials to the market. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have pitched me on health and wellness devices, et cetera, but maybe haven't want to put their product through the scrutiny of science. And I feel like that's an important step, at least for early phase studies. So we'll be looking into some of those type things and how they align with our clinic and in general.
My impression is that would align with you just in terms of your go-getter attitude and your intellectual prowess. I think that sounds like a bright future right there.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Truthfully, before I started this clinic, I had thought about doing a number of other entrepreneurial things, but I told myself I probably better go and learn how to run a business appropriately before I go learn that and learn a completely new subject material at the same time. So kind of like allergy shots, we're starting with low dose and escalating. And then if there's a reaction, we'll back off a bit and redirect. So there's a lot for the future. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. What's one major shift in healthcare delivery that independent practices need to adapt to right now?
Well, in my opinion, I think independent practices, I would like to see them stop treating each other as competitors so much and kind of link arms and try to figure out how we can lift each other's boats up together. Now, I recognize that I have a privileged perspective on that as one of only maybe 5,000 or 6,000 board certified allergists for the entire United States of America. It's easy for me to say that as compared to somebody who is, in primary care and there's another clinic down the road. But that being said, I think if we were to work together and share some ideas about how we can do this in private practice so that we can get autonomy back and make some own decisions in our life, that would be a great mindset shift. And I think we would all get a lot further, a lot faster, rather than trying to figure out how to sort of encroach on other people's areas and being overly protective of our own ecosystem.
What does success look like for you in the coming year? What would be awesome to look back on in December and say, oh yeah, this year was fantastic? What would that look like for you?
Well, success has always been the ability when my child says that I have a big event at school in the middle of the day on this day, that I can just go in and the calendar and shut off the clinic for the day. So that's a big one for me. I would say I've achieved that already. I think success for me is maybe returning to the top of Jackson Hole and staring down a ski hill, 10, 11,000 foot. Maybe I'll have to visit you at some point out in
You're
the
always
West.
welcome. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I think as I get older, I moved away for some of the things when I was younger. I wouldn't say it was materialistic because I definitely appreciated the things that I bought, but I'm much happier with just going from point A to point B now and looking into lifetime experiences with my family, meeting new people, and creating a legacy for myself and my family. So that's what success looks like. It's a bit vague, I suppose, but
no, it's perfect. I love it. I love that you said kids events first. I'm a dad too. Fantastic. I was pushing the business angle, but I love that answer. I'm going to throw it at you again. So where would you like to see your business in, say, 3 years? What would that look like?
Well, in 3 years, I think maybe I'd like to have some people working for me, at least on the day-to-day stuff, and maybe me being more involved in clinical trials and or technology development. Certainly if the people who work for me or with me have an interest in that area, they would definitely be welcome to do that as we grow. But I would like to sort of expand some of my other skills entrepreneurially. And I think that can be weaved into the practice that we're doing here. And still, baseline, we're still going to deliver excellent care. That's the goal always, unquestionably.
Loren, do you do anything on social media regarding getting messages out? Like I'm thinking on the patient level for patient education.
Yeah, we do a little bit of social media. And truthfully, that's been an area we've been intentionally quiet about in the past. I think in terms of who I am, despite me being outgoing in this interview, I've typically tried to just be quiet, keep my head down, get my work done, and word of mouth and all that kind of stuff would grow our practice. And it has. But I am recognizing that there are folks out there who need care, especially specialty care, and maybe I can help them on a complex area, even if I'm not going to be their doctor, just by putting a post out there, say, hey, have you considered this about immune deficiency, or have you considered this about allergies? So we are ramping up those efforts for sure. And I'm doing more things like this, like podcasts, which I never would have done in the past. So small presence on the uprise.
That's great. No, I think I think people would benefit from it. On the primary care end of things, I feel like patients are presenting more, and on all of medicine, I'm sure they're just more educated. And allergies being an interesting topic. I was smiling when you were going over penicillin because I feel like that's one that stays on charts. Well, I don't know, but my grandma was.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
Or it got it's like one medication above in the drop down list or something. They hit it with the wrong thing on the mouse and the chart, and it's that way forever.
Right.
That's happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's on there forever. Yeah. Also, I I feel like I've seen in my career people coming with more sensitivities, whether it's food allergies, and I try to make a distinction between an allergic reaction and a sensitivity
Mhm.
for the client, and more questions to explore. So I would think that messages on social media of allergies in general, it's a topic that I touch upon frequently in the primary care setting, and I would be curious to see your take, and I think there'd be a lot there to share with clients, with
Yeah,
customers.
I think the one thing that I point out a lot, because I see this a lot in my clinic, is folks come to me with home testing or maybe even testing done at a lab that they paid out of pocket for. And I had somebody, I think they came with a panel of, I don't know, maybe 200 tests or something for foods. And they said, what do I do with this? I'm allergic to 50, 60% of this. But I look on the test and it says it's an IgG like George instead of an IgE like Edward. So I have to explain in the molecular biology that may indicate a sensitivity, but if you're talking about true allergy, the molecular biology of how that pathway is initiated goes through an IgE like Edward. So we're able to reintroduce a lot of foods back into the diet. Again, if you're listening to this out there, please speak with your doctor, because I can't make a blanket recommendation without knowing you as a patient. That's I guess my disclaimer. But in general, that those tests can be a little bit confusing for folks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Loren, where can our listeners go to learn more about North Star Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology?
Sure. Well, we have our website. It's northstarallergy.com. We're also available on Facebook, I think Instagram, LinkedIn for sure. And I think we have like a YouTube channel with just some educational material, but I'm not sure that we've really put as much effort into it as we will be going forward. Like I said, we're a growing clinic and people can reach out, primary care doctors as well. If they feel like they need some help or a curbside, we can point you in the right direction. And if they want to know about us, those are the best way to reach us. And I suppose our telephone number, which is 727-222-1879.
That's fantastic. We'll put all that information in the show notes. And just for our listeners, it took us a couple takes to get here, but Dr. Isakson, thanks so much for being patient with me and for coming on the show today. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it as well.
All right. Best of luck to you in the future. And thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Healthcast. You guys stay tuned. Thanks for listening to the Healthcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, and subscribe. And share it with someone in healthcare or digital health. And if you're a healthcare leader focused on scaling your business or improving operations, I'm always open to connecting. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's a link in the show notes. Thanks so much.